So now I'm gonna look up bound, put it in there, and it's what you're gonna do. It does what you expect. It basically finds the bounding box of whatever precedes it, and this is a good way for us to visualize um, exactly which area is going to be, say, sacrosanct. It's not going to trim past this from frame to frame. So I just added some padding around the sides, and of course, this will move with it. The reason why I don't do it to the actual fluid source is a little more advanced. This is going to query the path that it's looking for, that it's pointing to a bunch of times during the simulation, and we don't want it to having to keep rebuilding this fluid thing, especially later if I make this a higher res thing. So suffice to say, put it here because this is obviously a much easier thing for Houdini to compute. It's just some simple bounding box around some simple geometry. There you go again. So cool. So here, track by object, sop path, put it here. So now, when the simulation runs, oh, we gotta reset it. Sometimes you gotta force it to reset. You can see that cache there in the corner. Okay, anyway. So now when we run it, see, it didn't start with that little box. Now it's starting, it's always gonna be at least the size of that tracking object. And that's useful for a bunch of things. It's useful, again, so that you don't have it cut off areas that you know you're about to add density to. But it's also useful because you might need velocity. You might need space around your density, especially if you want to disturb the air in front of the smoke, which is so often the case. If it's too aggressively trimming back the domain, well, then it'll never even get a chance to disturb the air because there'll be no air there in a sense to disturb. So we may have actually gave it too much space here, but you get the idea in any case. I mean, any amount that you can cut down on its simulation is well worth it. In fact, actually, I'm just going to go all the way back down to. I mean, it's not even really this padding that is saving us most of this. It's really just even having the bounding around it in the first place. So back to here again. Cool. So now we have a smaller box. And there you go. And you can see how it grows, usually in time with the rest of the simulation. If you found that it needed to grow faster, you could add a padding amount here. You could change how aggressive it is. Like maybe if you want to be way more aggressive, you could do something crazy like this. So now if there's density that's 0.1, it'll still cull it. It'll still try to. I mean, it's still running up against this tracking object, but it might cut off stuff that you don't want. But if you may decide that 0.1 it doesn't matter, maybe you're really far away from it, you couldn't tell anyway. Just real quick, there's initialization dynamic, which is pretty cool. Initialization dynamic allows you to move this. So imagine a comet moving across the screen. This static won't work because you can't have it. You still don't want to have a huge box inflating over time. You still might know that you never want to get bigger than this size, but you want that to move. Well, you can give it an object, like some sort of null or some sort of sphere or whatever, and it can follow that and say, okay, we'll have this domain follow that object across the screen. And that's super, super, super useful for moving things that are on fire, planes, cars, whatever. And you go with initialization dynamic. If you want to build your own bounding box, almost like how we were doing here, but maybe you'd make it bigger, you can provide that here as well. Again, initialization static is great for simulations where you really want to set in stone how big it's going to get, and it's never going to basically move from where it was in the first place. So there you go, that's initialization static. And that overall summarizes, I think, the gas Resize fluid dynamic. Oh, also delay frames. Maybe you don't want it to cut back the moment it notices that it can. You can have simulations that fade out and then maybe it'll get smaller again. So if I break my cardinal rule here for a second and actually do use this dissipation, you'll see that by if I stop adding volume into the sim, maybe here, if I'm not adding volume, density into the sim, and if we're losing it to dissipation, it's going to run out of density. And then if we run out of density, this is going to see, we fell below the threshold, and you're actually going to see the field collapse on itself again, except down to this bounding box, of course. So let's watch that happen real quick. I think that'll illustrate that quite well. And away we go. Bum. So here it is. Remember, we're adding density in, it's dissipating out, and then it should shrink. So now you can see that it's shrinking. It went from being more tall and more to the right, and then it disappears down into that. Actually, I'm surprised that we're still seeing density coming into this. Okay, there it goes. I must have had to go farther than I thought I did. And there you go. So now we're back down to what should be more or less this box plus the padding that this already has. Yeah, so anytime you can make the domain smaller, you're saving simulation time. So try to take advantage of that for sure.